The golden rule in the mafia is not to talk to law enforcement. Any kind of conversing with them is a death sentence.
Okay, so I'm dead.
Starting off with an easy one. Snitches get stitches, right?
Hey everybody, I'm John Alite. I'm an old enforcer for the Gambino family, and these are the unspoken rules of the Mafia.
6 shell casings were on the pavement of East 46th Street, right next to the body of Paul Castellano Sr., the top mafiosi in the United States, the heir to the Gambino family, indeed, the son-in-law of the late Carlo Gambino.
What happens next and who's in charge? Who is going to take over an empire of dirty money and power built on drugs, flesh peddling, violence, and intimidation?
I started, I guess, about 17, 18, and I worked my way up to the more serious things as I got into my 20s, into murder and some violent acts. And I was a strong arm for our family. You know, as a kid, I started picking up the rules of the Mafia from a childhood. It's like going to kindergarten, working your way up. It was just a natural process.
Remember your ABCs, kids. Assault, battery, and crime.
Like a school-educated kid, you start off with letters, and today's letter A. And it's the same aspect with the mob world. We watch how a guy gets up and he excuses himself from a table before he moves along because of the trust factor and the respect factor for the boss.
The Mafia are a jumpy sort. Don't give them an excuse.
I started learning little things like that, not so much words either. A lot of times, you know, I try to tell families and kids, it's not what comes out of your mouth, it's the way you handle yourself, the way you walk and the way you're moving, your movements. And kids, you know, copy that, whether your own children or, friends of yours or their family members.
Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious.
As a young kid, we were in a schoolyard and we watched a guy running through the schoolyard. A bunch of guys were chasing him and they came from every direction. They caught the guy and they started batting him to death. The language from these guys, you rat bastard and you snitch, and so obviously we know he was talking to the police.
And I thought my NDA was airtight.
Later on, after they give him a beating and kill him, maybe 15 minutes later, a couple guys came back and they grabbed us and they said, you see anything over there? We said, see what? And the guy smirked and they said, the guy over there, what happened to him? And we said, well, we didn't see anything happen to anybody. So we knew it at a young age. We just knew that in those days, you don't talk, you don't look, you don't pay attention, and what you see, you don't see.
Keep calm and carry on, or else.
Usually the most common use for violence is to impress upon whoever we are, our laws, our rules, our regulations, and to collect money. I mean, we taught pretty young at a young age, don't threaten people, don't talk, just do it.
So that's where Nike found its brand identity.
So there is no, I'm going to hit you over the head with the bat if you don't have the money tomorrow. You're just told you better have that money tomorrow. Because of his actions, there's a reaction from us.
Well, what do you know? Newton's third law of motion.
For me personally, I used a bat a lot, a pipe. Later on, I would use a gun often, and a knife, not as frequent as the bat and guns, but I used a knife also on several occasions. You know, me personally, violence was in my nature. I grew up with it. And as I look back, I made a mistake because I was too violent. And when you're too violent, you're hurting your financial situation.
A representative from Consolidated Rackets Incorporated pays a routine business call.
But cleaning fees aren't cheap with all the bloodstains.
Sometimes when you're using violence, you get used to using it and you're not using common sense. And you're bringing heat on yourself, your family. A lot of law enforcement, they know who you are and that the pressure's going to come on even further because you're very violent.
Don't make the cops' jobs easier.
Now, over the years, you learn to use 10 gears instead of 1 gear on a bike, right? So there's a lot of ways to get the money. But when you're young, immature, and you're looking to be that top gangster, I think you're apt to be a little more violent. Learning respect is, since I'm a kid, again, I was watching the way other guys moved around, the bosses that I was around and with my father in the Bronx. And I'm a child. And the bosses would, put you on their lap. They'd be giving you $100, $50, pat your head. But you're watching, it's not what he's saying. You're watching what the movement of other guys around him. So when they walk in a room, I'm learning very early on, they don't say hello to my uncle or my father or some other guy. They go directly to the main guy.
Monkey see, monkey do. Monkey won't get pistol whipped.
They shake his hand, kiss him hello. You could see that they walk on eggshells with them. Then they sit down and say hello to the rest of the guys, whoever was in line. It would go by rank, basically. And I learned the same thing. And then over the years, you start learning more and more of these rules.
Every Mafia crime family needs a hangout spot. The Little Rascals had the He-Man Woman Haters Club, or for the Gambino family, this was it. Here they could talk and drink and gamble, as long as they show up on time.
Got to be somewhere. You got to be there 10 in the morning. Gotti would show up at our Bergen club at about 11. He didn't wake up early. Sometimes he showed up at 12 or even later, but we had to be there about 10. And if you think he doesn't know you're there, you're mistaken. He's very astute about who's around, what's going on, and if you think you're a lower level guy and you don't have to show, he wants you there. He knows who's who. Louis DeBono was making a ton of money. He was huge in the construction industry. And John Gotti wanted to see him. They were trying to reel him in and collect more money than he was putting up. And John asked him to come in, and he refused to come in, which when you're asked to come in, there is no option. There is, well, can I come at 8 o'clock? If you ask them to come at 6, can I come on Thursday? When you ask to come on Tuesday, you just drop whatever you're doing. It's a 24/7 job, and he refused to come in several times. And he asked to meet me and Bobby Borriello. We did a walk talk, which is so we don't get caught on eavesdropping equipment. And we spoke about who's going to hit Louis and where. And it was Kevin McMahon, Charles Cornelia, and Bobby Borriello. They were going to hit him in the garage in the World Trade Center, which happened. And that's where they kill him. Well, time is one of the things. You got to be around for years. You're not just accepted from nowhere. So when you hear, a lot of times you hear, well, how did this guy come around? Meaning myself, I'm Albanian and Italian mob. But I grew up in the life, and I grew up around guys like Andy Ruggiano, whose son Albert was my baseball coach, a good friend of mine, box together at Lost Battalion Hall in Queens. You're raised around everybody in that mob world. Everybody knows you since you're a kid. They know your movements. They know your fights. They know you're tough. They know that you have the ability to be a street guy, a gangster, you're violent. So some of the qualities they look for. We were sitting at a table in a diner late at night, and I didn't know the kids, but one of them opened their mouth a little slick to Gotti's son. And I didn't like what he said, and I just reached across the table and grabbed a ketchup bottle and put it across his head.
Break glass in case of hurt feelings.
He started running, and one of the other guys was like, we're friends with him. But I thought it was off color what they said, and they said it in front of a group of people. And I made a judgment call. Maybe he didn't like that he did it, but he smiled at the same time, knowing that if somebody says something or does something to him in front of me, there doesn't have to be words. It's just a look. And, I hurt him. I didn't completely hurt him bad, but I hurt him enough where he understood, don't ever talk like that again in front of me about it. We were raised in a different era in the 80s where we dressed like gentlemen. And it was an image that Gotti wanted to project to the public, that we were not bums. We were successful, classy guys that would protect the neighborhood. And the way we carried ourselves was very important because it was his image. It was his brand he was building. So, when we went in the afternoon to the club, we would have walking suits on. They're basically outfits like a suit like I'm wearing today, but with short sleeves, and they're a jacket and pants set with, loafers. Or we'd wear sweatsuits, but dressy ones.
Dressy sweatsuits. Oh, well, if I can wear them to my cousin's wedding, I'm in.
Back in the day, there were feelers and outfits that matched, that were, money. They weren't, raggy gray sweatpants with a t-shirt. So there was an image he wanted from us. And it wasn't so much verbal, it was, we understood by the way he carried himself, how he wanted us to carry ourselves. The same thing with sunglasses and fast cars, and he didn't want the images of, he would say, pimp. Stop dressing like a pimp, don't drive a pimp's car.
Do not pimp your ride.
He didn't like it. I pull up in a Corvette convertible, everybody started calling me Vets.
Just don't pull up in a Ford Escort.
Although John didn't like it, he did like it. he did the same. He was on speedboats, he wore sunglasses, but he didn't want it to get carried away because he didn't want the appearance of major drug dealers. We also started buying big cars like Lincolns and Benzes, and the Lincolns and the Caddies were big back. Then later on, the Benz started coming in. But these cars were more conservative-looking cars, and they were known to be gangsters' cars. And you'd have several guys that could get it out, in and out, so that, they're 4 doors, they're not 2 doors.
Oh, sure. Who wants to get shot in the back trying to climb into the back seat?
There's always a level of decorum that we were expected to maintain from when he first pulls up with his car to boss. So whoever's there opens the door for him. When we get in the car, he sits in the front, we get in the back seats.
Gotti gets shotty.
When he gets in the car, one of us drive, depending on who he says to drive. When he goes into the club, we walk into the club, and unless he gives you the eyes to get out, or he'll tell you to sit down, or he'll tell you go down the block and get me the barber. Just that morning, did he wake up grumpy? Is he going to come in and give you that dead stare like, get out of my face today? There's one rule after another, but some of them are untold, some of them are obvious. You don't wear the same clothes as he has. If he has something on that, you notice when he walks in and you say to yourself, oh shit, he's got the same clothes, I gotta go change.
No twinsies.
Where you park your car, you make sure. We used to park in the bank next door.
With the Chase Bank Mafia card, you always have a parking spot, but expect a small fee for body disposal.
The bank obviously liked us there because it was also a protection thing for them. If you're sitting down at the table, we all have already pre-seated positions at that table that we don't sit in other people's chairs. We know where we sit.
If you don't know where to sit, you're on the wrong table.
We don't eat until he puts a fork in his food first.
Don't even think about grabbing a French fry from his plate.
We don't take a sip of our drink until he takes a sip of his drink. There's no conversation at that table until he starts that conversation.
So basically high school cafeteria popular table rules.
It's not business, mob business. You're inside we're inside a social club. So you're assuming that there's wiretaps in there. So we'll talk about sports. We'll talk about joking around. We'll talk about a television program, beautiful woman that we ran into, just small talk. And then you go outside for your walk talks with whoever you're conducting business with. I mean, listen, the most lucrative business, and, we used to joke about it because you'd see guys making a ton of money. See, man, he's running a lot of numbers because, the numbers business was big back then.
The numbers game, otherwise known as the Mafia lottery, was illegal gambling, bringing in a lot of money and a lot of trouble for anyone who couldn't pay what they owed.
We know it's heroin. It's not numbers.
Well, all right then.
They might have a numbers business, but you're not making that kind of money in numbers. You're not making that kind of money in bookmaking because there's a lot of money in bookmaking. It's impossible to make the billions and trillions of dollars that is made over the years without the drug industry. So when someone tells you not in the drug industry, it's like any other thing. You have to conform to what's movement. If other families are starting to move, you have to, because of the power factor of that money.
Forget that the Mafia is historically anti-drugs. It's about the money, people. Come on.
Over time, everything changes because you had prohibition. And there was a ton of money being made in the liquor industry. It was basically a drug business with liquor. So when the legalization of alcohol came in, something needs to take its place. And that was the drugs, whether it was cocaine and became heroin. Certain things sell. That's sex, that's drugs, that's liquor, it's nightclub, and there's no limits when it comes to those things. People have addictions, and people, when they're making more money, they want party harder.
Oh, Mafia life sure is a lot like advertising. Wait, is this where we put the ad break in?
Well, you got bosses like, Paul Castellano had Patsy Conti around him that owned all the key foods. He owned supermarkets, he owned key foods, but he was huge in the heroin business. So Paul Castellano was good friends with him. Paul Castellano was completely against drugs. As far as he was concerned, Conti was giving him money from the supermarket industry. We don't know supermarkets that can make that kind of money. So if he has a blind eye to it and he doesn't know anything about it, he doesn't have to enforce the rules of death to anybody that sells it. Some people get special treatment and preferential treatment depending on who you are and what's your relationship with the with the boss.
Well, not my boss, no. He's sick of us all equally.
Yeah, your loyalty gets tested on a constant basis. When you're in trouble, all the guys that are around you desert you. When you're in trouble, when you're in penitentiaries like I was in a third world country, your partners and friends and gangsters are not coming around to help you.
Look, if you're locked up, you just better make new friends, and fast.
You start seeing, and then they're testifying, giving information with excuses behind it. You start understanding you're not that 20-year-old kid anymore. You're a man that's been to war, that understands what war is about in the street, because we're at war, regardless if it's legal war or not. We're in constant, you're on the fight or flight mode. And, especially if you're in the trenches doing this kind of work.
There's a reason they call mafia leaders lieutenants.
In the real world, you go to jail. So there's a consequence of breaking rules in the real world. Breaking rules in the mob world, you get killed, you get hurt, you get broken down, and you have no relationship with the mob anymore. I mean, in the 70s and 80s, it was a very, very serious life, the mob. I mean, we're very stringent in the rules. There was no bending any of these rules. There wasn't as maybe he's cooperating, or maybe this guy's talking, or maybe this guy. There would be, if there was a maybe behind any of that, if there was any kind of question mark, just go kill him.
All right, shoot first, ask questions later. Actually, forget the questions.
It was done that quickly in those days. That's changed completely. You definitely don't put your hands on another member of your family. And that happens now, and that would be a death sentence. And you have guys from other crews threatening other crews, and that would be a death sentence. So there's so many things that today they do, and they're openly using drugs. They're getting caught pimping young girls underage, and there's no consequences. There's no death sentence. If you bring somebody around and he's cooperating or wear a wire, you're responsible for that individual, just like Sonny Black was years ago. Those days are gone. So whoever's believing in the existence of the Godfather in modern time mafia is insane. I've always said my own personal rules is you're loyal to who's loyal to you. I was very violent, but I chose my rules. My rules were I weren't going to kill any kids. John Gotti's brother, Vinny Gotti, a woman belittled Pete Gotti at the Kennedy Inn. And Vinny Gotti, because he's
a nut job,
not respected, he was insecure. John Gotti himself didn't care for his brother, broke his collarbone earlier. He killed her, wrapped her up in a carpet and threw her in a garbage can. Now, this is the same guy that his brother, John, made me go up to Eastern Nappaneck prison, and he got his chain taken off him. And John told me to go see him in the 80s and tell him if he doesn't get that chain back, he's going to break his neck again like he did the other time. And he wasn't man enough to keep it, and he wasn't man enough to get it back. And he embarrassed the Gotti family on several occasions. That's one. It's embarrassment, it's a disgrace, it's something that's a low life. We're supposed to be killing the guys that are killing women. And when you start crossing that line, you're not the mafia anymore. You had guys like Tommy Karate, that Bonanno family that, chopped up a woman and killed her. To me, this is not normal behavior. This is not gangster behavior. This is serial, something psychologically wrong behavior. I've known what I've done over the years, so could I do it? Yeah, I'm definitely capable of doing that. Would I like to do that? Not at all. Well, trivial rules like sunglasses, because I wear them, right? People want to see your eyes, and people say to you, well, I want to see if he's full of shit or something, because they want to see your eye movement. They want to see, why you're covering your eyes. What's the reason behind the glasses? Now, Gotti used to say that a lot. Take those, can I curse on him? Sure. Take those glasses off. He says only rats wear them. But then you'll see him in pictures with glasses on. So, but he doesn't mean exactly what he's saying. What he's saying is, I want to see what you're saying to me by looking in your eyes.
Come on, don't be shady.
In the morning, it's a sunny day. You want to go to the beach, right? And then you realize you compromise your life. There is no beach, without permission. The average day was you get dressed, you show up at the 99th Street, 101st Avenue. You'd go to Richie's Cafe. That was Gotti's other brother. He had a little cafe around the corner. We go sit there. We'd have an espresso or something. And then we go around the corner to a diner. This guy, a great guy, had it. Nice guy, Nick. We go eat something, and then you start bullshitting with the guys, whoever's there, the up-and-coming guys, the guys that grew up with our regime of guys. And we break balls with each other, laugh, wait for the father to show up, maybe get a shave, go to the corner, get our nails done. We were always in the nail salon because it was also next door. On the weekends, we'd have a family dinner, meaning the Gambino family members and associates would be at the main table with Gotti. And then some of the other guys would sit either in the kitchen or in a small little table, or in the same room. Sometimes we'd set up another table for them. And we go about our day after that, and guys would come in from every crew and pay homage to Gotti and talk whatever they needed to talk, messages. And that was our day on a usual, besides if we'd run out and go to the track, go to OTB, go to the casinos. If we left the neighborhood, we'd go to Atlantic City or one of those casinos. Either we'd drive down most, and once in a while we took helicopters. That was just a regular routine of breaking each other's chops, laughing, and it was a good time at the same time because of the camaraderie of it. And we'd talk about schemes of making money, and then sometimes we'd walk down, like I said, to Joey Scopo's club and go see some of his guys because it wasn't far off. And if Gotti came, somebody would beep us and tell us he wants you back. Well, we'd go to JoJo's club once in a while because, we're all same crew, even though it's different factions, especially back then, they didn't all get along. Later on, John gets more friendly with them. But at first, they couldn't even come down and see John. It's the way you move. It's the way you carry yourself. It's not so much what you say. It's that slickness. We've been in the street our whole lives. We know who's a street guy. We know the way you dress. We know the way you walk. We know that, you either have that swagger or you don't. Whether you have money or you don't have money, you got to carry yourself as a success. And I think that's in general in life. It's, how you dress, how you tip, your mannerisms. You're not a big mouth. You're not loud. You're polite to waiters, waitresses, hosts, wherever you go to a Broadway show. And the insecure guys are always loud because they're not, those are the guys that'll tell you who they are and what they are and pretend to have, they'll wear 100 chains around their neck and watches because they're insecure guys that are not secure enough to know they're not man enough to carry that position. Whether you're Spanish, black, white, Indian, or any, or a gangster, or a gang member, or a biker. If you're street smart, you understand, and you can read through all this crap.
Most of the gangsters do not live in suburban opulence, but in areas like Mulberry Street at the toe of Manhattan. For their own survival and the survival of their organisation, they remain in the relatively safe havens where their fathers and grandfathers grew up.